by bread alone. Yeah, this word got food in it. Stepping on the devil dome, you should see the bruise in it. Backing out the scripts, told a demon to stand down. Go against the Most High, we gon' see how it pan out. The Father gave me hope, fill me with the ghosts. Now they hate it when I glow. Joseph with the coat, looking for their fruit, but they ain't got no cantaloupe. The Messiah or Belial, you can't be a fan of both. Can't serve two masters. Bread of heaven with the living water, yeah, serving up a truth platter. We ain't idolizing no folly, now we setting up a new standard. When Christ touched down, make the whole earth shake like Bruce Banner. Yeah, bringing them troops to ya. End times getting spookier, warfare getting nuclear, mankind getting goofier. They intoxicated with a wine, damn, she done roofied them. I'm checking every word, spirit doctrine like a proofreader. I hate these Nicolaitans, hate these raving idols, man, I hate these flipping pagans. Trying to play my father and I hate these imitations. Screaming out Hosanna, we escape that simulation. Better flee to me, vote these or else that lake is where you layin'. Great is he inside of me, casting out this net like I was by the Sea of Galilee. Harvest gon' be plenty, but the laborers are few. Matthew 17 and 20, there ain't nothing we can't do. I can't be no lukewarm, fringes with the blue on. Devil wanna deal, but I told him this ain't Groupon. Praise to the Almighty, you know we gon' sing a new song. Hail the King of King, the ultra low, no Jimmy Neutron. If you keep his laws and his commands, then we can fellowship. I don't get with Pharisees and I don't rock with Hellenists. I ain't praising man, cause only Father get my reverence. I'm swimming in the word, it got me feeling like a yellowfin. Yeah, big stepper, Mr. Demon Chin Checker, trying to hear that well done, cause I feel that displeasure. Father pouring out the wrath, and he got a big measure. If it ain't about the kingdom, then I don't give a six letter. You got faith in the Messiah, you got power. I was clean up in that blood just like a shower. Isaiah 5, you were the vine that came out sour, but now we stand to giving glory in this hour. Yeah, we breaking them curses, fleeing the ways of the serpent. Follow his word and pray for discernment, cause they want us laying in hearses. We gotta rise up, raise and resurface, choose life and stay in your purpose. The price was paid like a merchant, through Christ who came as a servant. See, the kingdom is really the bag, but yet somehow they chasing a Birkin. After this you ain't getting a chance, while you living you can't better search him. Gotta call on his name like his urchin, never knowing that day is emerging. So repent at the weight of perversions, judgment coming, that thing is for certain. Let's go.
Alright, first and foremost, I want to give all praises, all glory, and all honor to the Most High God, whose name is YAHAWAH. Of course, I do so in the name of his only begotten Son, Matawathya Yasharahla, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Alright, we're the Hebrew Israelites. We come out here to week in and week out to prophesy the downfall of this kingdom, America, and to teach repentance to you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Hermano, where you from? Where you from? Puerto Rico, ven aquí. Yo, what do you think about the ICE raids? Huh? What do you think about the ICE raids?
I think it's bad.
You think it's bad, right? Now let me ask you a question, right? Because I've been hearing a lot of African Americans talk about. Some African Americans say, "Oh, we're staying with our Hispanic brothers and sisters," and some say, "Oh, we're not marching with you guys. We're not going to stand in solidarity with you guys because when it was us, y'all ain't do nothing about it." How you feel about that?
We all together, man.
We gotta be together.
We all together.
So what we teaching out here is black and brown unity, right? You got on a shirt black and brown, right? Ain't that a coincidence, right? But what we teaching that so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, that we're the children of Israel, right? So you're Boricua, right? Right. What is the island of Puerto Rico before the conquistadors came over and called it Puerto Rico, right? What did the indigenous Tainos call it? Do you know the name of the island? What they called it?
Which one?
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
What did they call it? What did the Taino call it? Because the white man called it Puerto Rico.
No.
Puerto means, it's from what language? Puerto is port, right? In what language? In Spanish, right? In Espanol, right? Puerto, right? So rich port, right?
Yeah.
So the Spaniards came and conquered the indigenous people, the Tainos, right?
Yes,
The
sir.
Tainos, they called the island Borican. Right? You ever heard Borican? Right? So let me ask you a question. Were you born in Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
All right. So in El Campo, right? In the hills, right? In the country. What do they call the people in El Campo?
Puerto Riqueño.
A more colloquial term, starts with an H. You ever heard the term Ibaro?
Somos Ibaro, sí.
¿Qué significa Ibaro?
Ibaro is like Ibaro is somebody that is like how do you call that?
But you're familiar with the term, right?
Yeah,
so, Hibado, is that a Spanish word or is that an indigenous word?
Hibado is a Spanish word.
It's not Spanish.
Well,
it's not Spanish.
For some people. Yeah,
it's not Spanish. It's actually an indigenous Taino word, right? So Hibado goes back to the Assyrian word Ha-Ibiru, right? Which goes back to which is the same as the Hebrew word Ha-Ibaria, right? Which means the Hebrew. So you guys calling people Hibado, you're calling them Hebrews. Now, in Puerto Rico, they found over 3,000 ancient artifacts of Paleo Hebrew. The word Paleo means ancient. So the indigenous people of the Americas, right, of the Caribbean, right, so-called Latinos today, right, are Israelites, right? So you're an Israelite from the tribe of Ephraim, right? Now when we look at Ephraim, right, let me get Genesis chapter 49, right? You have Joseph, right? You remember the story about Joseph? He had the coat with many colors, and his brothers were jealous, and they threw him in the pit, and he ended up in Egypt and whatnot, and he got raised up. So Joseph, he had two sons, right? Manasseh, right, or Manasseh, right? And then he had Ephraim, or Aparium in ancient Hebrew, right? Ephraim or Aparium means doubly fruitful, right? Now, Puerto Ricans are some of the most fruitful people on the planet Earth, right? You got, I'm sure, how many brothers and sisters you got? 5, right? How many cousins you got? A ton of them, right? There's more Puerto Ricans in New York than there is in Puerto Rico, right? Because again, let me show you this. Check it out. Let me go to Joseph, right?
Verse 17, where he blessed.
Yeah, not that. Go to Genesis 49, right? I want to go talk about Ephraim. Joseph, boom. Check that out, verse 22. Check this out, brother.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 49, verse 22.
So in Genesis 49, we have Jacob, the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, right? He says, gather all you my sons together so I can tell you what's going to befall you, what's going to happen to you and your descendants in the last days, right? So Joseph, he had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, right? So they collectively are the tribe of Joseph, right? You guys also known as the tribe of Ephraim, tribe of Manasseh, but collectively the children of Joseph, right? Read on.
Joseph is a fruitful bow.
Joseph is a fruitful bow. A bow is it's a tree, a branch of a tree, right? Fruitful bow, read on.
Even a fruitful bow by a well.
Even a fruitful bow by a well. If you put a tree by a well, by a source of water, it's going to grow, right? What do trees need? They need water, sunlight, right? Read on.
Whose branches run over the wall.
Whose branches, right, run over the wall, right? We have this thing called a family tree, right? We as one tree, right? We as one family, right? The branches are our descendants, right? His branches ran over the what?
Over the wall.
Over the wall, right? Read on.
Verse 23, the archers have sorely grieved him.
The archers have sorely grieved him. So the Puerto Ricans, right, have been grieved by the archers. Who are the archers? The conquistadors, the Spaniards, right? After the Spanish-American War, the United States took control over Spain's former empire, right? And they squashed the nationalistic movement in Puerto Rico, right? So there was a gentleman who, I think his last name was Campo, right? He was a revolutionary in Puerto Rico. He actually studied at Harvard, right? And he was instrumental in Puerto Rico's fight for independence, right? Puerto Rico right now, you got Jake Paul, right? White boy, right? He can go down to Puerto Rico, buy all this land, right? For a tax haven right now, and they're setting up private beaches on your own land, right? Puerto Rico to this day is still colonized, right? The archers sorely grieved him, right? Read on.
And shot at him and hated him.
Shot at him and hated him, right? No one's more hated than black, Hispanics, and Native Americans. It's been evident, right? They came over here, they stole the land from all the natives, right? They enslaved y'all. They brought us over here, right? Enslaved us and built this empire off of our blood, sweat, and tears. Read on.
But his bow abode in strength. And the arms of his hand were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. So
the mighty God of Jacob is keeping y'all strong, right? Still keeping y'all alive, right? The stuff that we've gone through as a people, right? They deliberately sterilized Puerto Rican women, right? They did cancer research on women in Puerto Rico, right? They did nuclear testing in Puerto Rico, right? Which again has affected our people, right? Right now they're trying to kill the coquí, right? They're doing all this evil stuff in the land that you guys were dwelling in, right? This is evidence that we're the children of Israel. Read on.
Verse 25. Even by the God of thy father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under.
Blessings of the deep, because it's an island, right? You got tons of natural resources, right in Puerto Rico, right? But guess what? Puerto Ricans don't benefit from the natural resources, right? The indigenous Tainos don't benefit from the natural resources, right? The conquistadors came over, right? Enslaved you guys, right? Made you guys get all types of natural resources, bring it back to them so they can ship it back where? To the mother country, to España, right? So again, Puerto Ricans have gone through colonialism and slavery, right, and captivity. So have so-called African Americans, so-called Caribbean people, so-called Haitians, right? We have been in this collective fight, but the issue is we've been divided and conquered, right? When we're divided and we're not united, we can't stand, right? Our enemies divide and conquer us, right? And what we're teaching is that our people, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, that we're not these names that they gave us, right? I'm not black, right? No so-called African American is black. No one's this color, right? We're various shades of brown. We're the same people, right? You're not Hispanic. Hispanic means property of Spain. Latino means deriving from Latin. You don't speak Latin. You speak a Latin-based language, a Romance language, but you're not Latin, right? You're an Israelite from the tribe of Ephraim, right? And so what we're teaching is the reason why we've gone through all of these turmoil, all of these curses, is because we sinned against God, right? We didn't keep God's commandments, right? When you look at a lot of the practices that was going on, right, amongst the indigenous people, a lot of the practices that were happening of the people, some of the people of West Africa, right, who got brought over here in slavery, on slave ships, right? It's because we were sinning against God, right? And God sent our enemy against us. Let me get Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 47, right? So check this out, right? Quiet as kept, Puerto Ricans were put on ships and sent to Hawaii to work on the dole plantations, to pick pineapples. Hawaii was stolen from the indigenous Hawaiians. They're not our people, right? But it was stolen from them, right? Incorporated as a state, and they created these dole plantations. And guess who they brought to work those plantations? Puerto Ricans, right? So again, we've been going through the same thing, right? Bring that out.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 47. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God.
Because we didn't serve God. Read on.
With joyfulness.
We didn't serve God happily. Con feliz. Right? Read on.
And with gladness of heart. For the abundance of all things.
Because God gives us all things. Everything comes from God. Read on.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
Because we didn't serve God happily, right, who gave us everything, right, he said you're going to serve your enemies, right? The conquistador es tu enemigo, right? Read on.
Which the Lord shall send against thee. In hunger.
So God sent the conquistadors against us in hunger.
And in thirst.
And in thirst. So we got to buy water, right? We have to buy food, right? Puerto Rico, right? When America took over Puerto Rico, right? They set up all these sugarcane plantations, right? And know what company got filthy, stinking rich off of the blood, sweat, and tears of your ancestors? You ever heard of Domino Sugar?
Yeah.
Domino Sugar. I'm from Brooklyn. There's a Domino Sugar refinery in Brooklyn, right? And guess what? These white people got rich off of your hard work, sweat, and tears, right? Read that part again. So it says in hunger and in thirst, right? We got to buy water from them. We got to buy food from them. What they did was they made it so that all the food for Puerto Rico had to be imported, right? Anything that they exported had to be exported on American ships, right? So again, it's all about the money, right? Read on.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things.
Anything you need, right? Clothing, food, shelter, water, we have to go to our enemies for, right? Read on.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
And they put yokes of iron on the necks of the indigenous people, on so-called black people who was taken from the west shores of Africa. Right, read on.
Until he have destroyed thee.
And guess what? And they took those shackles off our physical bodies, but the shackles remained on our minds. Right. My wife, she's Honduran. Right. One of her cousins, her dad is Puerto Rican. Right. And she, all right, my wife's cousin. Right. So she's half Puerto Rican, half Honduran. Right. She voted for Trump. A lot of Latinos voted for Trump against their own interests, and now Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do. right? We were down at the Trump rally when he was campaigning down at on Temple's campus, and you don't know how many Latinos we saw over there in support of Trump. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you niggas? And same thing with black people. What is wrong with you niggas? These people, this white devil, right? This orange bastard don't give a damn about Latinos. He don't give a damn about black people, right? His first speech on the political scene, he said Mexicans are rapists, they're murderers, and I'm sure some of them are good people. But guess what? You had a bunch of Mexicans that voted for him. You had a bunch of Latinos, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Venezuela. You had a bunch of Latinos voting for him. It makes no sense, right? They voted for a person who has demonstrated how much he vehemently hates us, right? And guess what? That's not just a new thing. They've been hating us. They hate us because they ain't us. They hate us because we're the children of God, and they're the children of the devil. So they're at odds against us. But God said, if we don't keep his commandments, he's going to send them against us, right? Read on.
Verse 48, verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee far.
From far, right? Spain and Puerto Rico are far away from each other, right? It said, I will send a nation against you from far, read on.
From the end of the earth.
From the end of the earth.
As swift as the eagle flieth.
As swift as the eagle fly, right? When Christopher Columbus came over and sailed the ocean blue in 1492 on the Nina Pinta and the Santa Maria, right? They had no Spanish flags, and on top of those flags, they had an eagle. Because the Western European white man always embodies himself and symbolizes himself as an eagle, right? What's the national bird of America? The bald eagle, right? Same thing, right? Read on.
A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
Whose tongue, right? Whose language, whose lengua, right? You will not understand. You guys were not speaking Spanish, right? Here's the thing. Christopher Columbus brought a Hebrew interpreter because he read the Bible, right? Because the Bible said that the 10 tribes of Israel would go to a place where never mankind dwelt. And that place is called Arsareth. He identified the Americas as Arsareth. So when he came over here on the Nina de Pinta and the Santa Maria, right, he came with Hebrew interpreters because he had to be able to communicate with the people, right? So he brought these Hebrew interpreters, right, to the island, right, so they were able to communicate with the Tainos, right? Read on.
Verse 50, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor shew favor to the young.
Listen, they had kids in them sugarcane fields. They had old people in them sugarcane fields, right? They had young kids in the cotton fields picking cotton here in America. They had old people, right? Till you die, you was picking cotton, right? They didn't care how young or old you were, right? A nation of fierce countenance. Read on.
And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle.
He shall eat the fruit of thy cattle. Read on.
And the fruit of thy land.
And the fruit of thy land. That's why they call the island of Boriquen Puerto Rico, because they hit a lick, right? They hit a great robbery, right, and stole the resources and stole the riches. Do you know how many Spanish vessels sunk in the Atlantic Ocean because of all the gold that they stole, that they had your ancestors go and pit and mine for, right? It's the age-old story of colonialism, right? Read on.
Until thou be destroyed.
And again, we're destroyed as a people. Now we've got our people voting for the people whose ancestors did all of this stuff to us, right? So, jump down to verse 68, right?
Verse 68, Deuteronomy 28:68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
So God told the Israelites that if you don't keep my commandments, I'm going to send you into Egypt again with ships. Now the children of Israel walked into the land of Egypt and they walked out, right? You didn't need a boat to get from Egypt to Israel, right? However, right, Exodus 20:2 says, I am the Lord thy God that brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Egypt is also called the iron furnace, right? We have been in the iron furnace here in the Americas, right? Look on the back of your dollar bill, what you see? An Egyptian pyramid, right? So the Lord said, I'm going to send you into bondage again, but this time on a ship, right? That happened, right? Read on.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
We were sold to our enemies, right? They traded us. Read on.
For bondmen.
For slave men.
And bondwomen.
And slave women.
And no man shall buy you.
And no one has redeemed us, right? So now, how do we get out of this captivity? Go to chapter 30, right? How do we get out of this? Hermano, ¿cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas? Tito. Mi hermano Tito, listen up.
Book of Deuteronomy chapter 30 from the top. And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse.
We just read you some of the curses, right? God said, I will bless you if you keep my commandments. I will curse you if you don't keep my commandments, right? We've received the blessings that back in history, right? Before all this stuff happened with colonialism and whatnot, right? And now we're experiencing the curses, right? And it's time that, listen, we want to get off punishment, right? When you were a kid growing up, right? And you was acting up, your parents beat you, right? They put you on punishment, things of that nature, right? So we want to get off punishment from our Heavenly Father, right? He has us on punishment. So let's see what we have to do to get on our Father's good side. Read on.
Which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations.
If you have to call something to mind, that means you have to remember. That means that we discontinued, we forgot ourselves, right? It said that, but we will remember ourselves in the lands of our captivity. That's right. Read on.
Whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God.
We have to return unto the Lord, right? Right. So, for instance, did you grow up in the Catholic Church? Right. So in Catholicism, they teach you that God, right? That it's God the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? I went to a Catholic high school, right? When I was in Spanish class, I had to say the Hail Mary, right? Ave Maria, bendito es tú eres, right? I had to know all of that, right? But guess what? None of that. When we were talking Catholicism, right? I was raised Baptist. None of that is what the Bible teaches, right? Jesus Christ, Jesus Cristo, is not Dios. No es Dios, right? He is el Hijo de Dios, right? The Son of God, right? And God the Father, el Padre, right? El Señor, llamado YAHAWAH. YAHAWAH is his name, right? In Hebreo, right? So it says, read on.
And shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day.
It says that we have to obey all that he commanded us, right? Obey his voice, right? Well, guess what? In the Catholic Church, all right, in the Protestant Church, right, we're taught that all you have to do is believe in Jesus, right? Believe in Jesus, do a sign of the cross, a couple Hail Marys, right, and you go to heaven, right? But no, the Bible doesn't say that. Christ, Jesus Cristo, in Matthew 24 and 13 says, he that endureth until the end, the same shall be saved, right? So we have to endure all of this chastening, all of these curses, right, and return unto God and keep the commandments in order to be delivered. Read on.
Thou and thy children, with all thine heart, and with all thy soul.
Come on.
That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity.
When we return to God and we keep his commandments, that's when he's going to return our captivity, meaning he's going to deliver us from captivity, right? So if you see, brothers, we have these things called fringes with a ribbon of blue on our shirts, right? That's a commandment that God gave us, right? Right? Can you grow a beard? Can you grow a full beard? No, right? So we're told that we're not supposed to shave the sides of our beards, right? You gotta let your beard grow, right? That's a commandment of God, right? You eat pernil? Once in a while you eat camarones? Well, God said camarones, no bueno, right? Anything that comes out of the water that doesn't have fins and scales, it's an abomination. It's filthy. It's dirty, right? A camarones is a cucaracha. La cucaracha de la mar, right? Of the water, right? Read on. Read on.
And have compassion upon thee.
So God's going to have compassion upon us when we stop eating shrimp, when we stop eating crab, lobster, and pork, right? When we start keeping his commandments, we start wearing fringes on our clothing, when we start worshiping him in spirit and in truth, right? Read on.
And will return and gather thee from all the nations.
From all the nations. We've been scattered all over the world, right? He's going to gather us from all over the world. Read on.
Where the Lord thy God hath scattered us. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee.
Come on.
And from thence will he fetch thee.
Come on.
And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed.
So you heard what's happening in Israel. Israel attacked Iran, right? And they've been shooting missiles at each other. Well, guess what? The people that are in the land of Israel right now, the so-called Jewish man that has a little bra cup on his head and the little curlies on the side, they're not the children of God. They're not the children of Israel, right? They're the Edomites, right? Biblical prophecy says that the Edomites will take possession of the land of Israel, right? Christ says that Jerusalem, right, which is the land, will be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Right? And it says that the Edomites will be there at the time in which the real Israelites, the real Jews, the true children of God will be getting ready to come back. So what we see happening right now in the land of Israel, right, in Iran, that's biblical prophecy. The Most High God is going to destroy those people, right, in our land who's defiling and doing all types of evil and wickedness over there, right? And he's going to deliver us. All this chaos that you see in the world, it's all for the exaltation and for the liberation of black and brown people. But here's the thing, we have to be united. Let me get that in Zephaniah, right? Gather yourselves together, right? Because what do they call black people? They call them nigger, right? What do they call Latinos? They call them spit, wetback, right? All these racial slurs, right? They don't desire us, right? So the fact that we're both undesirables, right? We've been treated in this American caste system as the undesirables, as the worst people imaginable by the literal worst people imaginable, the white man, right? We have to gather together as one people, right? So read that. Is it Zephaniah?
Yeah, Zephaniah.
You're in Zechariah. Yeah. It was a little further before. Zechariah is further. It's Zephaniah. There you go. Bring it out.
This is the book of Zephaniah, chapter 2 and verse 1. Gather yourselves together.
So gather yourselves together.
Yeah, gather together, O nation not desired.
O nation not desired, right? We are the nation of Israel. Now, when we read the book of Psalms, the 83rd chapter, it says that all the nations, right, starting with the white man, the children of Edom, followed by the Arab man, the children of Ishmael, right? And all these nations, right, they're confederate against us and they cut us off from being a nation. They divided and they conquered us, right? They divided black and brown people, right? We are told that we're not the same. We are the children of Israel. We are the nation of Israel. We are the children of God. We are the nation that's not desired. Read on.
Verse 2, before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you.
Right now, America, all right, the place that has gotten rich off of our blood, sweat, and tears, right, the place that literally murdered our people en masse, committed genocide against black and brown people, right? This place is known as Babylon the Great in the scriptures. And Babylon the Great is prophesied to be destroyed via fire from heaven, right? The destruction will be so grand, it'll happen in 1 hour. Now, what on earth today could destroy an entire continent, right? An entire country as large as America in 1 hour? I'll tell you, thermonuclear missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles, right? America, Babylon the Great, is getting ready to be destroyed. So it says, gather yourselves together before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon, right? Read on.
Before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you, seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth. All ye meek of the earth. Where the meek means to be low, right? Who's lower than black and brown people? No one. God's age 42, right? Read on. All ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness. Seek righteousness. What is our righteousness? The law, statutes, commandments was found in the first 5 books of the Bible, right? The Torah. That's our righteousness, right? Deuteronomy 6:25 says, and it shall be our righteousness if we keep all these commandments, right? So we have to keep our righteousness. We have to seek the Most High God by seeking righteousness so that we can be delivered. Read on. Seek meekness, it may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. And if we seek righteousness, we keep the commandments, we will be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. When the Lord brings destruction upon the place that we call home, right, we'll be hid from that. We'll be delivered from that, right? But it's contingent upon our obedience, right? If we want to be exalted to our proper place in this earth, right, as the children of God, we have to keep his commandments, right? Let me get 2nd Ezra, where it says the earth is made for our sake, right? Did you know that the world was made for your sake, brother? God made the world for you. Not for everyone. He made the world for you, for us, for the children of Israel, the people who you see on this sign, who've been relegated to redlining, right? Relegated to Jim Crow, to colonialism, to slavery, right? To all types of genocide, right? God made the world for our sakes, right? And the world will be ruled by us, right? When we keep these commandments. Read that. This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 8 and verse 1. He answered me, saying, the Most High God have made this world for many, but the world to come for few. The world to come is for few, right? Get the one in 2nd Ezra 6, right? Yep, get the one in 6, right? So the world was made for our sakes, right? So you on that flyer, you got a Spanish side, you got an English side, right? My phone number is on both sides, right? Like I said, you're an Israelite from the tribe of Ephraim,
right? It means that you are a special people, brother. Right? This is Deuteronomy 7:6. Right? So what you got? Okay, good, Isaiah 42, right? Let me show you this, right? Now, let me ask you a question. Do you know anyone that's ever gone to prison? No?
No, I don't have no.
But do you know of people who have him? Right? So in America, right, what demographic of people primarily fill up the prison houses?
Who fools them up?
I said, what race of people, what two groups of people are the primary people who are in prison? Blacks and Latinos. And Black and Latinos, right? So check this out. The Bible said that will happen. Read that.
It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 22. But this is a people robbed and spoiled.
Right, you're from Puerto Rico, right? Your island, Borican, was called Puerto Rico because your island was robbed and spoiled, right? Read on.
They are all of them snared and whole.
The word snare is an archaic word for a trap, right? Right now, right? So Black Americans started this subgenre of hip hop called trap music, right? In the South, right? And then it spread to Puerto Rico, right? And Cuba, right? In Latin America, now you have Latin trap, right? Bad Bunny, right? Conejo Malo, right? He became a star from trap music, from Latin trap music. Read on.
And they are hid in prison houses.
They are hid in prison houses, right? Blacks and Latinos, we are the ones who fill the prison houses. Read on.
They are for us prey, and none delivereth.
They are for prey, right? A lion, right? He's a predator, and he stalks his prey, right? We are for prey. These other nations, they stalk us as we're gazelles, right? Read on.
And none delivereth.
And none delivereth. No one's saying, hey, what you guys did to the people of Puerto Rico when Hurricane Maria came through, right? That was wrong, right? Trump, you throwing paper towels at Puerto Ricans, that was wrong, right? I was in Puerto Rico back in 2020, right? After Maria hit, right? And guess what? I was down in La Pela, right? We went to help Puerto Rico. Where did it go? It did not help the people of Puerto Rico, right? Read on.
For a spoil, and none saith restore.
No one's saying restore. No one's saying, hey, give black people reparations. No one's saying, hey, give Puerto Ricans their independence. No one's saying, hey, give Texas and California and Arizona, right, and New Mexico back to the Mexican people. No one's saying that, right? But people are saying, oh, let's march for Gaza. Let's march for Palestine, right? Because no one cares about us because we're the children of God. Right, so what we got to do is we got to care about each other, right? We got to come together, gather together as one nation because we're the undesirables, all right? And when we come together and we seek righteousness and we keep God's commandments, then he's going to deliver us, right? So, hermano Tito, it was beautiful meeting you, brother. You got any questions? Feel free to reach out to us.
I'll check this out.
Okay.
All right, and nice meeting you.
Likewise. Likewise, hermano. All right, we love you.
Thank you.
All praise to the Most High, man.